Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today we start an epic saga where we have a story from Am I the Butthole that comes with 8 updates, and it is a brutal story. Before we start that, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. Alright, let's jump into this epic saga. This story comes to us from Sacred Weakness 6250. Am I the butthole for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into a pool, resulting in them falling in? Happened today. My folks decided to host a barbecue because I guess that's what older people do. I declined because I really don't like my 2 sisters, their husbands, or their kids. Wife and I are child-free. Mom then pressured the wife. Long story short, we went. By the time we arrived, there were about 20 people there. My sisters and their husbands were already solidly buzzed. Drunk, really. My mom was spending 100% of her time trying to keep the nieces and nephews ages 7 to 11 more or less under control. My dad had strategically retreated to the whirlpool part of the pool with a small cooler full of beers. Wife and I made small talk with miscellaneous people, ate food, and had a frozen margarita. Sisters and brother-in-laws took turns criticizing us for being late, not being in our swimsuits, and screwing up the vibe. Whatever, typical suburban summer get-together. About 45 minutes in, 2 of the kids ran at one of the neighbor guests who was standing next to the pool and pushed her in. She was at the pool steps, stumbled in but didn't fall, so only got half wet. She was clearly very unhappy about it, but she didn't make a scene. Just went over to where the parents were, grabbed their towels, dried herself off, and left. Sisters and brother-in-laws thought it was all great fun. A bit later, I was standing a few feet away from the pool chatting away with someone. I saw 3 of the kids running full tilt at me from the corner of my eye. Obviously, I was next. Not that it's terribly difficult to outwit young kids, but I just jumped out of their way at the last second. All 3 of them ran straight into the pool at full speed. Most of the other guests, including my wife and me, started laughing, but their moms, who as I mentioned were pretty crap-faced, absolutely freaked out. Apparently, 2 of the kids couldn't swim, even though they were in swimsuits. Since I wasn't in swim gear, I stepped back from the pool and let other people fish the kids out. The kids were bawling their heads off like they'd lost a limb. At that point, all hell broke loose. The 4 drunk parents were yelling at everyone in general, and me in particular, for nearly letting their kids drown. And also because 2 of the kids had been videoing the trick using their parents' iPhones, which were now at the bottom of the pool. One of my brother-in-laws got into the pool to try to retrieve the phones, but his BMI and BAC made that impossible. No one else volunteered to help, unsurprising given that my sisters were still bitching at everyone. I told my sisters it was their job to watch their kids, and that if anything had happened to them, it would have been their responsibility, not mine. There were some pretty strong words on both sides. Wife and I left after the other brother-in-law fell over and face planted while yelling at us. Now they're saying I should have let the little craps knock me into the pool and have their fun, and ruin my phone. So, am I the butthole? Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Herobrine702. It says, "Not the butthole. People tried being butts to you. You avoided them." OP responded and said, "I realized they're just kids, and they were just having fun. The fact that they thought this was okay is more of a reflection of their parents than them." Another commenter down below called Pokemon No More said, "Not the butthole. The kids effed around and found out. If the parents' phones got ruined in the process, that's on them for not controlling their little hellions. I can see why you avoid family get-togethers. Hopefully, next time, your wife won't allow herself to be guilted into making you go." OP responded to this one and said, "That's probably the one positive thing that will come out of this. Wife is much more tolerant and forgiving than I am towards my siblings, but based on what she was saying on the way home, I think she's had it with them as well." OP, I wouldn't blame you one bit if you never went to another get-together where your sisters and those kids were present. I can tell you from personal experience, when you go to a get-together and somebody isn't looking after their own kids and they expect everybody else to do it, it just sours the whole experience and you don't want to do it again. Alright, believe it or not, we have 8 updates for this one. Let's jump into update number 1. This update is titled, Update, Am I the Butthole for Jumping Out of the Way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into a pool, resulting in them falling in. First off, my folks tell me that my nieces and nephews are all good swimmers and that they use the pool all the time. The 7-year-old is still a beginner, but he loves the water. My sister just said they couldn't swim, so I'd look bad. To be fair, none of the kids are allowed in the deep end, which is where they fell in. It was the 2 10-year-olds and the 9-year-old who tried to push me into the pool. After we left, the party ended on a pretty sour note. My drunk brother-in-law, who face-planted while yelling at me, had to go to an urgent care place and get his face stitched up. He was too toasted to drive, so Dad took him. Dad was not very happy about this. Late that evening, my sister started a group text and said some really nasty crap. Their husbands threw in a few comments as well. Wife and I blocked the 4 of them. My mom called me. She was pretty upset about what they said. She and Dad were in the chat, and I don't blame her. Because of the text, my folks insisted my sisters and brother-in-laws come over the next day, Sunday, without their kids, to get some things straight and lay down some ground rules, Mom's wording. The result was a contrite if unenthusiastic apology from the siblings via my mom's phone. I'm glad my wife was with me when they called. Her hard stares kept me from saying what I wanted to. I just told them thanks and that we felt no need to discuss it further. Since I thought things were settled, I unblocked them. That evening, I got a text from one of the brother-in-laws telling me that the phones cost X thousand dollars and asking when I'd be paying for them. WTF? I replied, never. Took a screenshot of his text and forwarded it to my folks with a note that we were done with this nonsense. We are going no contact with the sisters and spouses and not to invite us to any more holidays or get-togethers if they'll be present. Then I blocked the sisters and their spouses again. At that point, the crap really hit the fan. Dad called them and ripped them a new one. Among other things, he told them the grandkids were not welcome at his place indefinitely. Since my mom regularly provides free babysitting, that got them pretty rattled. He also banned them from using the vacation house and told them my wife and I actually own it, not he and Mom. This completely freaked them out. Both of my sisters' families use the place a lot, including having their friends up for the weekend getaways. This was very much out of character for my folks. They'd clearly had it. And for reference, I never wanted my sisters to know we owned the place. We bought it for my folks. They always wanted a place in the mountains. Keeping the ownership quiet was just a way to avoid drama with my siblings. A couple of days later, my sisters and their husbands came to our place unannounced to apologize in person. We were out to dinner and they left a note. One sister also called me at work too. I sent her to voicemail. We've decided being no contact is the best thing for the indefinite future and haven't interacted with them for the last 3+ weeks. Personally, I'm done. They can go pound sand. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Random Internet Stranger. It says, they're just really sorry now because their free babysitting is gone and you own the cabin. Another commenter called Main Egg 320 said, they are only sorry because they are worried they will no longer have a vacation spot or free babysitting. I would keep them blocked and, as you said, tell them to go pound sand. OP responded to this one and said, it's been less than a month, but I have to say that blocking them has actually made our lives noticeably more peaceful. I hadn't realized how much ongoing low-level drama they create. It's not toxic, they're not bad people, they're just tiresome and petty. And I personally don't care about them using the weekend place. It's ours technically, but we bought it for my folks. They control it and decide who uses it when they aren't. We pay for all the operating costs and taxes. One good thing about this blow up is that we now know what we'll be doing with the property when my folks get older. I was prepared to take over managing it, allocating weekends, maintaining it and such, but now we know we'll just sell it. And if we want to go to the mountains, we'll just rent an Airbnb. I love how the apologies start flying out when the consequences of their actions start to rear their heads. OP, I completely don't blame you for going no contact, but I also kind of feel bad for your parents who are going to be in the middle going forward. Alright, let's get into OP's second update. This update is titled, Second Update. Well, it's been an interesting last few days. I thought the crap had hit the fan before, but it was more of a fart compared to what's happened this week. For this to make sense, I need to provide some financial context. My folks haven't ever been any good at saving money. I've been doing their taxes for years, so I know pretty much everything about them money-wise. Their house is paid for, and they have minimal debt, but they didn't save much for retirement. Both of them get Social Security, Dad gets a solid pension, and they have a bit of savings, but there's no treasure chest in the basement. I bought their current car for them after they retired, a retirement present so they could have something nice to drive. It was the first car in probably 20 years they didn't lease. My sisters are convinced the folks are dripping with money and that our parents will be leaving the two of them everything since I don't need more money. So they've never cared about saving either. Turns out my oldest sister and her husband, they have 3 kids, have been living beyond their means for some time and are in financial straits. They've maxed out their credit cards and are behind on their car leases to the point that one is about to get repossessed. He'd bragged in the past about making X per year, but it turns out to be about half that. She confessed all this to Mom on Tuesday because they need a loan and because, and this was a WTF moment for Mom and Dad, that for the last 3 years, instead of staying at the vacation house regularly, she's actually been renting it out once a month or so and pocketing the cash. We're talking $2,000 plus for a weekend and at least $4,000 for a week. With her being cut off from using the place, she's had to cancel one group already. She's now worried they'll lose everything. My folks aren't in any position to give them a loan. My other sister was aware of her renting out the place, but of course hasn't ever said anything. I suspect she's done the same thing as well, because I went up there once to drop off an ATV I'd worked on, and there was a family there who claimed to be staying there with my sister and her family, and that they'd gone to town for something. At the time, I let it go. I figured she'd loaned out the house to some friends, but I've always wondered. I found all this out through my folks who are pretty stressed out about it. Mom more than Dad. He's mainly just pissed off about it all. I know Dad feels betrayed, and I imagine he's embarrassed that he's in no position to help his daughter out. He did reiterate that as long as it's up to him, the girls won't be using the vacation home anytime soon. My folks let me know what's going on because they figured my sisters would put a full court press on me next. And they were right. On Thursday, my sisters came to our place again, without husbands this time, and waited outside the door until I got home. I had to choose between fighting with them in public, them making a scene if I went in without them, or letting them in, so I let them in. I got a BS story from the older sister, with the younger one backing her up regarding why I needed to let them use the mountain place again immediately. They also said I've been a crappy brother and that I needed to step up and plan on paying for their kids' college tuitions, since that's what family does. I let them pitch their story, then called them out based on what my folks had told me. Things went to crap from there. There was denial, crying, cursing, yelling, you name it. I swear my ears are still ringing 2 days later. Won't lie, I said some really mean and crappy things to them, but nothing that wasn't true. They finally left after about an hour. After that, I took a shower and laid down. When I got up, my wife was home, and her first words were that she'd had to block more phone numbers because my sisters were blowing up our phones from new ones. Folks messaged me yesterday asking me to call. I'm sure my sisters have told them some BS version of what happened, but I'm not up to rehashing it yet. I'm usually a pretty energetic person, but this drama has me beaten down. I had just enough energy today to drive up to the vacation house and padlock the entrance gate shut. I'm the only one with a key. I'm guessing that will be enough to ensure my siblings leave the place alone. They'd probably die trying to walk 400 yards uphill to get to the house. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Last Assignment 3672. It says, "Wow, your sisters are crappy people. The whole because family statement is such a cop-out for crappy people. They believe it allows them the ability to treat you badly and still ask for money and help. I'm not sure what your parents want to talk about. However, if I were you, I would not help your sister out money-wise. I think they need to hit rock bottom to jar them enough to pull their heads out of their own butts. The fantasy world they live in does not exist, and it's about time for them to realize that. Hopefully, your parents don't try and press you to assist. I think that would just enable your sister and her family to continue to live beyond their means. Honestly, if you were to give your sister money, you can expect to never see it again. Just reading all of your posts has made me tired. Haha, I hope for your sake that things start to slow down." Okay, what I'm wondering on this one is if the parents knew that the place was being rented out by the sisters and they weren't telling OP either. That one makes you think. They've been pocketing a lot of money off of this place and now they're losing it all, and they completely deserve it. Alright, let's jump into update number 3. This one is titled Update Number 3. September 12th, 2023. Yet another update regarding the cluster F that is my extended family. Thought it might be time given what's gone on over the past 2 weeks. After my sisters came to my place, my mom and dad told me they were done with managing the vacation home. Sounded like the sisters had been pressuring them to let them use the place again. Basically, my folks handed the responsibility for the place over to me and told me it was my problem from here on out. Up until then, they'd kept track of who would be using it when, and they'd taken care of routine maintenance, replacing worn out items, etc. In any case, they decided they didn't want to be in the middle of all this crap. While I don't blame them, I'm disappointed because the darn place was supposed to be something for them to enjoy and hang out in, and they use it regularly. Plus, I've never cared that they let my sisters and their families use it because I've always thought that was my parents' call, even though I technically own it. But now, my folks are going to be in the position of not having access without me being involved, and that changes the whole dynamic of the place. I've taken several steps to secure the place. I already mentioned that I locked the gate. It has a heavy-duty chain and the best lock I could find. I also did a full reset on all the door keypads and created all new codes. Security cameras got installed yesterday, which is actually pretty cool because the installer convinced me to put in a high-res one that looks out over the valley. The system cost me way more than I thought it would, but the peace of mind is worth it. The installer also put up signs on the property saying the place was monitored by video. I also installed a heavy-duty lockout for the water shutoff and drain valve. I hope to heck I don't lose the keys for it, because if I do, it's going to be a bear to try to remove. Haven't told anyone but my wife that the water is locked off, and again, only we have the keys. Last week, I got separate calls at my office from both of the husbands trying to convince me to let them use the house like they always have. The older one had gone up with some friends for a guy's hangout, but couldn't get in because of the gate lock. He was pretty pissed and embarrassed about being locked out. I'm sure he would have broken the lock if he could have. During his call, he kept bouncing between pushy and victimhood. At one point, he threatened to rip that gate out of the gosh darn ground. He also admitted they'd been renting it out to a few friends, and they needed the money. I was ruining their business, and that I should refund their guests money. Me? F that. I should have recorded the conversation with him, but I don't know how to do that from an office phone anyway. The other brother-in-law just sounded like he was being made to call by my sister. He didn't really put up a fight when I told him not to plan on ever using the place again. In any case, I told them they can't use the place and not to ask again. At this point, I'm considering selling the vacation home. Wife and I won't use it enough to justify keeping it, and it's not like there's going to be any family get-togethers there anytime soon. I mentioned selling it to my folks. Their response was pretty much whatever. I'd more than double my money by selling it. The place consists of 3 lots with killer views and is at the end of a private road. but I'll probably wait for a while to sell. Doing so now would be an emotional decision. My sisters and I aren't currently speaking, and I have no plans to initiate contact. I don't know what the status between them and my folks is, and I don't want to. On the upside, we spent an evening with my folks last week, went to a new restaurant that was nice. No one brought up any of this crap. Mom did update us on the nieces and nephews. She's spending time with them at their homes. Sorry this update isn't full of laughs or owns. That's just life sometimes. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called NegativeBottle776. It says, "Thank you so much for the update. I'll advise you to check with your advisor if renting your property would be worthwhile. After all these improvements, a conscious-minded renter might give you a good buck for a month or year rental. Selling now, as you said, may not be in your best interest. About your pushy brother-in-law, I'll ask my lawyer to draft a letter of intent to sue for the profits from the rentals. Also, include a charge of misuse and any property loss or destroyed. Maybe do it for both. This will stop any further attempts, as they seem very entitled to your property and money. Good luck, update us if you can or need more ideas." OP responded to this one and said, "I agree that my sisters and their families are very entitled. They're also in an extremely weak position in all of this. The place is a bit remote to rent as a long-term home. Plus, there are times during the winter the road is impassable, so staying there year-round is pretty iffy. There are a couple of permanent residents on the road who are at a lower elevation and relatively close to the year-round public road, but even they have to hunker down or bug out a few times each winter. Regarding making it a vacation rental, doing so would be seen by my sisters as rubbing salt in the wound, and would give them a reason to create more drama. And honestly, we don't need the money. The place is paid for, it's in great shape, it doesn't cost much to keep the lights on, etc. I did think about lawyering up and covering them with paper. It wouldn't even cost me much. A good friend is a property law attorney. But again, doing so would escalate things and give them reason to create family drama. My primary goal at this point is to minimize my involvement with them and minimize any nonsense that causes my parents stress. I'm willing to take some short-term flack and absorb some expenses, like the camera system, to keep things contained. It could blow up again, but I suppose I'll drive off that bridge when I come to it. I don't think we'll sell right away, if at all. It's more of a last resort, personal fantasy thought than anything else. There's a good chance that come holiday season, my folks will reset and want to have the entire family there, which is fine. We won't be going, of course, but I don't care if my parents have guests there. I intend to keep control of the place for the indefinite future though, which will be inconvenient at times because I'll be the only person with a gate key, but I can live with that. OP, you're showing how much of a great person you are here, and I know if your parents wanted to use the place again, you'd go right on out there and unlock that gate for them in a heartbeat. I can't help but feel bad for the parents again though, because they gave up the place that they could go and get away from everything, and that meant getting away from all the family drama too. Part 2 of this saga, which contains the next couple of updates, will be released tomorrow morning at 9 AM. If there's a link down below this one, then it's out already. Click on that and go continue on the story. Did you know every KCC video is also released in podcast form? You can search for Karma Comment Chameleon on every major podcasting platform. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.